Welcome to the Real Chili Podcast.
And the Golden Eagles of Marquette University in Milwaukee are bound for the Final Four for only the third time ever.
5 seconds left. Marquette down by one, trying to avoid the upset. Blue the drive, the left hand. It's good. 1 second to play. Vander Blue has put Marquette in front by one.
And I want to win every day as basketball players, as students, and I want to win every day, most importantly, as people.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Chili Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lavender. I'm joined by Brian Henry, Pete Worth, and Pete Mohan. Fellas, it's been quite a while since we did a pod, the longest stretch ever. It's good to be back on the show with you.
Is it a good to be back on the show after the last 10 days? Is it?
Hey, we beat DePaul.
Oh, yeah, huge. Let's break that one down for the people. I'm sure they'd love to hear how well we did against the mighty Blue Demons.
Whoa. I know everyone wants to hear about the St. John's game because that was my favorite game of the past week.
So while it's good to be back on the pod with the fellas here, since Marquette got its biggest win of the Steve Wojciechowski era against Villanova, they have gone 1-3, most recently losing 68-65 at home.
Hang on. Actually, hang on. I think I can hear it, Mike.
What's going to happen? Oh, he dropped a bomb.
I thought it was just going to be a smooth takeoff.
Looks like they didn't pull it off. Continue. I apologize.
There's a lot to talk about from this game, and to be quite honest with you, because I don't get CBS Sports Network, I wasn't able to watch it, so I want to hand it off to you fellas. With this opening salvo, we have analyzed this team game after game after game, and there are starting to be themes in what we see, whether it's defensively or offensively. As you watch this game against Butler, what were you able to draw from that game that you think speaks to our larger trend throughout this season and where we need to go from here?
I'll lead it off, and I think the trend was that game unfolded exactly like I think the majority of this fan base thought it would unfold. Butler, while Marquette did make a push in the second half, Butler at all points during that basketball game looked like the superior team on both ends of the floor. I don't think it's by a massive margin by any means, but they look like the better basketball team for both halves on both ends of the court. Regardless of what area of the game you want to dive into with Marquette, we can talk about the lackluster and probably weakest performance of conference play we've seen out of the offense, or we can talk about anybody on defense seeming to possess the slightest bit of lateral movement, specifically the forwards. That game played out kind of personally how I thought it would go going in. We didn't get, outside of Luke Fisher, we didn't get a superb performance from anybody, and that's how it went down.
My takeaway is I thought this game was another letdown. When you think about it, the DePaul win was the second biggest win of the Steve Wojciechowski era, in that if we lost that game, we had zero chance to make the tournament. We don't have any games like that the rest of the way on the schedule unless we ran into DePaul in the Big East tournament. To make it out of the season without a loss to DePaul, as sad of a state as this is, that's a big thing for this program and for our chances at making the tourney. Coming into the Butler game, it was just a letdown. We didn't show any energy in the first half. We didn't mention this yet, but no Keelan Martin in the first half for Butler. I don't think if they ever said exactly why that was.
They wanted to help us out just a little bit, make it a little more challenging.
Butler played better offense without him, to be honest. Their better offensive half was the first half. This wasn't our second half defensive collapse that we normally saw. We couldn't ever get in rhythm, and then we let Krabs beat us up down the stretch.
I think their game plan, Pete Worth, was let's get Butler's game plan was let's get Luke Fisher going a little bit, let's get his confidence going, and they let him do that because he was the only one that I thought that could do anything all game on the offensive side of the ball.
And Luke did have a good game. Let's give Luke the credit. I think since we've kind of spent a couple of pods zeroing in on Luke and what was going on with him, I think he's turned in a couple double-doubles since then and really started to put more effort, at least from our perspective, into the game.
Agreed.
And one quick note before you jump in, Pete Worth. There is an individual on Butler's roster who is named Schrabbits Although apparently it's
Travis.
It's correct, right? It's correctly pronounced
Rabbits?
It's correctly pronounced Travis. So if you hear us say Travis, we are referring to Schrabbits.
Andrew is his first name, I believe, right?
I'll just refer to him as our king and overlord for the rest of the pod.
I have something to say about Travis, as you mentioned. I have a lot more to say, but I was fortunately at the game last night, kind of at a last-minute notice, drove up to the game after an invitation by our dear friend and St. Louis native Marquette alumni Christopher Lukey, an alumnus, pardon me.
I love us.
Now, all of us here are pretty big Gordon Lightfoot fans.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Oh, baby.
I was a little inspired
Oh, my God.
last night after the game, talking to another one of our dear friends and frequent listener to the show, Kevin Botting. I wrote this little ditty today while at work thinking about the game. So I hope you guys are all right.
I'm so excited.
Okay, and pardon the bad music. All right. 3, 2. Bam 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 bam. On a cold February night, we had Butler in our sights when the Bulldogs came into Wisconsin. I heard Chris Lukey say, "I'll slide tickets your way in a suite from Rockwell Automation." The fridge was well stocked, then Marcus Howard got blocked every time he drove into the paint.
The whole game!
As point guards go, he is smaller than most. Could that be Tyler Weidman behind him? As the halftime bell rang, a surprise proposal came in for one of our honorable troops. She answered with a yes, the crowd wished them the best, and we turned back our attention to hoops. Shout out to Sergeant Amber Rice, who was accepted a proposal at halftime last night of the game.
You the real MVP, Amber.
Luke Fisher was the pride of the MU side and accomplished a big double-double. Just 1 point away from a 20 in 10 day. You can go ahead and suck one bubble. But in a major crunch time blip, his perimeter D slipped as Andrew Travis kept slashing. As the minutes ticked away, the emotions did sway from the coaches pacing the sideline. Our guy slaps the floor, Brad Stevens ain't walking through that door, yet the Bulldogs sure came away just fine. Though our feeble hopes fell, thanks again folks from Rockwell, that cab sav was top of the barrel. Especially for us guys that numbered 8 or 9, only they're hoping to see Dan Fitzgerald. Bam, 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 bam.
Hey, hey, hey! Oh my goodness gracious.
That was incredible.
I don't have words.
Cheers.
Hey, thanks, Luke, for clanging those 2 free throws to keep them under 20. That's all I was caring about in the second half.
Oh, I forgot to mention the title of the song, which is called "The Wreck Without Dan Fitzgerald." I forgot to.
Peter, you are a scholar and a poet, apparently. That was beautiful.
A better summary has never been sung.
There are plenty of reasons that you would listen to a lot of other Marquette media, either on Twitter or podcast. But if you're not convinced that Real Chili is the best thing out there in terms of Marquette basketball, after hearing that, you'll never be. Go ahead, Pete Worth.
Well, I just want to say thanks again to Chris Lukey and the company he works for, Rockwell Automation, for having us in the suite last night, which was fantastic. Beautiful night, beautiful room, great scenery. Wish the result would have been better. And then once again, congratulations to Sergeant Amber Rice, who got engaged last night at the student at Marquette and former Marine.
Gordon Lightfoot is smiling down somewhere on all of us. That was special. It took the sting out of another terrible loss.
It did take the sting. I was all fired up to to have hot takes and stuff, and I'm all happy and just want to get a beer and relax for a while now. But
that was part of the goal.
That was part of the goal. Transitioning back to the game, Brian, you made a mention that one of the things that is carried over is that this is the team we are. We're a 500 team. I think Ken Palm is currently predicting we're going to finish 9-9 in the Big East. And I want to start this conversation off, and feel free to insert where you see fit examples from the Butler game. Say what you will about the offense, the Achilles heel of this team to this point in the season has been defense. They haven't been able to figure it out. Our rotations in many situations are still too slow. It's clear that whether they have the right scouting report or not every player on the roster is paying attention to it as closely as they should. Sagging off three-point shooters is not something that should be done in rotations that we implement. So I don't know how we fix this defense if we're going to become a tournament team.
Mike, I think February 7th, 2017 officially ends the what is it going to take to fix our defense discussion, because it's not. It just this is what it is. You already laid it out. It's not getting better. Now, granted, Butler didn't carve us.
So we should be glad that we've hit our ceiling defensively, that we've played up to that.
I'm just saying for our purposes, yeah, of course the players are going to keep it. I'm just saying for our purpose, what's the point of breaking it down every single time we get on there? They're not any good defensively.
I agree they're not any good defensively and that we have beat this horse to death, but why the hell aren't they good? It's a combination of factors, and we're not going to solve this here, and we're not going to send this to Wojo, and then they don't listen to this, and if they are, that's a red flag right there.
Don't worry, they're not.
I'm
not worried about them listening to it.
I think there's a bigger question at play here, and we have such an efficient offense. I'm beginning to look at this as an inability to adapt to the roster that we have, to the circumstances that we're in from the coaching staff. Have I documented proof of that? Not necessarily. But we're this far along in the season, and we do not have a consistent defensive product. We can put together stretches. Why can't we do it consistently? Are we putting the wrong players in the wrong positions? Is it game plan? I don't know. Who's putting together the different scouts and the different game plans? I think there are bigger questions here than just, oh, we suck, we shouldn't talk about it anymore.
I agree. Well, but that's for our purposes right now. Let's dive into the specifics of what we just watched. Pete Mohan, you watched it on TV. Worth, you were there. All right, last night in the second half, in a 2-point ball game with about 5+ minutes left, they consistently got the ball to Travis, whatever the hell he wants to call him.
Barabbas.
Yeah. Or Barabbas, yeah. Whatever you want to call him.
We definitely freed him.
They wanted to get him the ball at the top of the circle with Luke Fisher guarding him. And I don't think that's necessarily Luke's fault. Luke's not supposed to guard a guy like that, but that's who he had to pick up because of who was on the floor. I think that was just good coaching and a good matchup situation done by Butler.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a massive breakdown of Marquette's defense. They didn't have the bodies on the floor to guard him, especially if Luke's trying to defend him 18 feet from the basket.
And there's times when they put Hauser on him as well, but those times Travis just kind of took him inside and bullied him.
And he just bullied him, absolutely.
Yeah, we're too young. I don't want to say that.
Too young has nothing to do with how we guarded him, though.
No, we're not too young. We're young. We're small. We're small, most importantly. And we're not that deep when it comes to bringing guys off the bench or guys that are starting that can handle big physical post play. And that's.
We got to give Holtman credit because the first time we played, Travis was shut down basically the whole time. Travis was a non-factor in the victory that they had over us the first time we played, but he really got his. He was their leading scorer this time, so. You have to give Butler's coaching staff some credit for putting Travis in a position to succeed against our defense. And a lot of it really didn't even come till the end. And I don't know what their scheme change necessarily was, but they just wanted him slashing and attacking. And that was the difference down the stretch, was the game plan, and we weren't able to stop it.
Well, they're a good defensive team too, and our ball movement wasn't nearly what it has been in previous games. On our defense, there was a stretch there in the second half when we came back and took the lead that we played pretty good defense. We just can't sustain that just because we don't have the physical prowess from up and down the roster.
You both started to allude to it. Give Butler credit.
Yeah.
That's one of the better defensive teams we will play all year. They did a terrific job taking us out of any rhythm we could get. I thought they did a really nice job challenging shooters, and they didn't give up a ton of second opportunities. We hit the glass pretty well on the offensive end. No, we wish we did it better defensively. Butler was good. I thought they weren't. Let me put it this way: it wasn't an unbeatable Butler defensive effort. I think we could have beaten them in that game. Again, it was a tie game essentially with 5 minutes left. They made more. They were able to kind of torch us at one end. Well, here's a question that I'd like to ask the group. I texted all of you this. So when we get under 3 minutes left, they're down 5. Luke Fisher never touched the ball. If I recall, Rousey took a shot. I think Howard took a shot, and I'm blanking on the last couple. But I don't think Luke
Reinhardt
took a goal. I don't think in that immediate 4 possessions out of that timeout, it was Travis on one end, and then Fisher never got a look. Now, if that's just because they were afraid of him getting doubled or what, but you would have thought that running something to get him a touch, he's either getting fouled or doubling him, and he's kicking out to an open shooter. And I would have been comfortable with him taking a contested shot. I'm just surprised we never saw him get a look in those final couple minutes.
I'm going to throw something out there. I think that this stretch of these last 4 games, DePaul not included, so really our 3 losses since the Villanova game, the story has been the offense more so than the defense almost. Granted, we let St. John's get loose a little bit on us, but we haven't scored 80 in either of the Providence, St. John's, or Butler losses. Part of the reason that we've pointed to in the past was going away from Luke. When you have a good three-point shooting team, you can kind of count on it, but still, when you're a shooting team, there are going to be ebbs and flows in your shooting, and you can't rely on that to win every game. So what you need is that consistent down-low scoring threat, and Luke can be that if we go to him. When we were down, the reason that we came back is because we went to Luke, and then down the stretch, when they widened the lead, it was because we were just jacking threes and not including the interior portion of the offense at all.
It's also very disappointing when 2 of our starters and 2 of the guys we thought would be maybe the 2 leading scorers on the team going into the season, Juwan Johnson and Haney Cheatham, look lost offensively all the time. And the total
3 points for Johnson, 4 points for Cheatham.
7 combined points. I mean, Cheatham wants no part of a 3-pointer right now. Juwan made 1. Every time he gets to the rack, we've talked about it who knows how many times, but he either gets stripped or he jumps in the air and turns it over. I mean, I was just going into the season, I thought they would be much more reliable.
They didn't catch the Sandy Cohen yips, did they?
Well, and let me add this too. Marcus did finish with 19. I don't want to, 6 for 14 from the floor. He had 5 3-pointers. I don't want to belittle that. But Pete, you referenced it in that terrific Gordon Lightfoot rendition. How many damn times did he get his shot blocked last night?
Well, that's another part about being small.
4, 5, 6, close to it.
I think the thing with Howard, and this has been increasing over the past number of games, is that I think the scouting report on him and how to slow him down is finally there. Put a lengthy guard on him, get in his passing lanes, try to disrupt his passes, and
make him put it on the deck.
And it's worked. I mean, yes, he's got 19 points because he's got an amazing 3-pointer, but teams are starting to figure out how to stop Marcus, whereas earlier in the season, it was much more of a question mark.
And I'll say this too, Pete, I'm curious if you noticed it, that when Marcus is getting his shot blocked, more often than not, it's the weak side defender coming over, not the primary guy guarding him. And
I didn't really notice that.
There's something, I don't know, Mohan, if you noticed it. Last night it was noticeable, and that's something where, from a scouting report standpoint, they're confident he's not going to see the open man either. If it's I would never accuse him of not having his head up. I think he does a pretty good job seeing the floor, but he's not a big guy. So when you get down towards the basket and help comes over, and the second you turn, you're seeing 2 bodies, or you can't see Luke Fisher or Sam Hauser or whoever's open on the opposite block because they've kind of blocked out the sun. I think he was a victim of that last against Butler.
Well, I think a lot of people on this team are leaving their feet a lot of times and turning the ball over because of that. I think obviously Hanif, Juwan, and I think you mentioned Howard. Howard has to go up because he's short. You don't have necessarily the same excuse for Haney, but I mean these guys are attacking the hoop, but they're leaving their feet a little too early. than throwing the ball away or dribbling off their foot or something like that. And those are the turnovers that we can't have if we want to have consistent, successful offense.
Not just to hammer on those guards, Andrew Rousey, after some huge games, 14 minutes and 0 points. I mean, this is just kind of who we are. We are this wild and erratic. Caton Reinhardt can go nuts one night. Rousey can, or they both can, or the two of them can combine for 8 points, and Rousey scores 0. It's a weird basketball team.
I think a huge part of this game is that Butler's obviously very sound defensively, but we turn them over 14 times, and we're good at turning teams over. We're good at getting steals. However, I especially noticed it last night. In transition, we don't have the guys that can finish at the rim. When we talked
Cheatham
a little,
can.
Well, Cheatham.
I disagree with that.
Well,
Cheatham does.
Cheatham does sometimes. They struggle to do it when posed against another defender. I mean, Juwan Johnson, he's probably our best at it. He gets the most steals. He can, by far, our best finisher. But Cheatham, Dwayne Wilson, Marcus Howard, I mean, we got a lot of steals last night and opportunities to get transition buckets, but they had a guy back that prevented us as opposed to, and we had to take it back and kind of start the offense again instead of going right at them because they were either going to get blocked or basically just blocked, which happened all the time. Their point guard, Kamar Baldwin, freshman, 6-footer, had 4 blocks last night. So it's just and those points, I mean, if we could score more often on those, I mean, that's a big swing in that game last night.
Of all the negative that we just walked through from this past game, the positive looking forward is that of the remaining 6 games in conference play, Marquette has ample opportunities to pad its tournament resume to try to sneak in to the NCAA tournament as a bubble team. Ken Pomeroy currently predicts us to finish 9-9 in the conference, and he predicts our final 6 games will go 3-3. So that includes probably close games away at Providence, home against Xavier, home against Creighton. Opportunities for Marquette to get quality wins coming up in the next few games, but fellas, that's not going to be easy, and that starts with a road contest here in Washington, D.C. this Saturday afternoon.
It's a big game, and Georgetown's been playing pretty well recently. I think they've improved throughout the conference season, and it's not like they're devoid of talent. Govan and Pryor and Peak and that other guy who was Carrington, I think maybe? No, that's Seton Hall. Shit. Whoever that other guy on Georgetown is that can hit shots.
Yeah, that guy's awesome.
I'll have to look it up. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, but the thing about the rest of the season, conference season, is that, I mean, we're not going to win them all. We're not going to lose them all. But every single game is winnable, and every single game is losable. I mean, that's just kind of where we're at.
Brian Henry, looking at the schedule, and Pete Mohan, this is a question for all of you. Can we go 4-3 against the remaining slate? Can we go, 4-2 against the remaining slate? Is that possible? I think if we do that, that's enough to get us into the tournament looking at the games that we have left, depending on, of course, what we do in the Big East tournament. But I think if we go 4-2, we could get into the tournament. Do you think that's a possibility looking at the schedule?
Mike, 8 years ago, Kevin Garnett taught us that anything is possible. However, that being said, do I think it's likely? Am I betting on it? Not that we would ever advocate gambling on this podcast.
Nope.
No, I think this is a 500 team down the stretch. I think that they are what they are. Honest to God, I would be going into Georgetown. This is a game Georgetown is a bottom feeder this year. There's no better way to describe them.
Well, I just think they might be better than you're giving them credit. I mean, they're 56 in Ken Pom rankings. They got wins over Creighton and Butler, so they don't have a lot of good wins.
I'm not spoiling the pick. I'm not going to spoil the picks yet, but you're absolutely right. I don't think this is a gimme game at all. I think it should be a gimme game if we were playing at a higher level, and it's certainly not the case. 4-2 is possible, Mike. I don't see it though.
Well, let's go ahead and get to picks then, because we got to wrap up here. And by the way, next pod we ought to do a prop bet on the over-under on how many times Brian Henry says they are what they are. I've been racking that up in my head throughout the season. All right, so let's go to final predictions for the Georgetown game coming up on Saturday, February 11th at noon Eastern here in Washington, D.C. at the Verizon Center. Pete Worth, going to go to you first since I know you got to jump off the phone. What do you see in this game? What's your prediction?
This game kind of scares me because Georgetown is talented offensively, and if they are making shots and moving the ball well, then I can see them taking it to us. I don't really like the way that we've played in the last 4 games. Obviously, that's no surprise. It's like some of our guys have kind of lost that confidence after the big win against Villanova. Now that can change in a heartbeat. I mean, if we start hitting shots, we can beat any one of these teams remaining on our schedule, like I said. But it's something about on the road against a tough team with the way we're playing. I'm a little bullish on this game, so I'm going to say it's a 5-point loss.
Pete Mohan.
This team has shown that they can just be on or off at any time, and the recent trend has been to basically alternate games in which they've done that. Judging by the lesser than average offensive performance against Butler, I would expect our offense to get going and maintain. I think that we usually play pretty well in DC, but despite Georgetown's recent success, I just don't think that they have the shooters to keep up with us in this game. I'm going to say a 3-point win for Marquette. I think that if you look at the remaining teams on our schedule and the potential feathers in our cap that we could have going into the Big East tournament, we could say that we split with Villanova, we've swept Creighton, we've swept Xavier, and swept Georgetown. If you can go into the tournament saying those things, then
it's a pretty good
you
case.
have an excellent tournament resume. So those are the things that are still possible in this team's schedule, and I think that this game against Georgetown will set the tone for how this team wants to finish.
Brian Henry, tell us why we're not going to make the NIT.
Georgetown
reeks.
Does not reek this upcoming weekend. Hoya Saxa, gentlemen. I think we are due. It has not happened in a while, and I think we are due to get the doors blown off us. And for whatever reason, my spider sense has it tingling that this is the one to have it happen. I think it's going to be a very malaised Georgetown crowd. They don't give a darn. I think our players are tired to a degree, and I think Georgetown, for whatever reason, puts it together for one magical day and light the scoreboard up to 85-plus points, and we can't throw a rock in the ocean. Call it just a hunch. I think this line's going to be close. We might even be favored a little bit, but I like Georgetown in this one by, let's call it 10-plus.
Personally, I see Georgetown coming off of 2 losses. I sense from some of the folks that I talked to here in D.C. that the wheels are coming off the bus, despite the fact that they've played better in the second half of the season than in the first half. I'm going to say it's a very close Marquette win. I think our offense gets back on track to something that we're more used to, finishing at the hoop in transition off of steals. So I'm going to say a 4-point Marquette win, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's a 10-point Marquette loss.
And Marquette alumni in D.C., if you're going to the game, seek out Mike, and he's going by himself.
One is the loneliest number.
Yeah. I need friends.
And I should clarify, I said I was bullish on this game. I meant bullish for on Georgetown's chances.
Yeah. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here at the Real Chili Podcast. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. We're going to be coming back to you more throughout the remainder of the conference season, and hopefully Marquette can put the pieces back together after a 1-3 stretch here to get themselves into the tournament for the first time in several years. Signing off for Pete Worth, Pete Mohan, and Brian Henry, I'm Mike Lavender.
And Gordon Lightfoot.
That's right. Thanks so much for listening to the Real Chili Podcast. We'll talk to you next time.